Whenever you are in a learning environment, not only do you open your mind to receive information, you also open your spirit to receive impartation. That is why you must be selective under whose teaching you sit. Don't allow yourself to be carried away by a person's eloquence or even by their gifting. Watch their life, watch their character. By their fruits you shall know them. The Bible tells us that God has not left himself without a witness. Acts chapter 14, verses 16 and 17. God never leaves himself without a witness. And in the middle of this godless educational system, God has got an army. And in the right time, in the same way as all scattered all over Egypt were the children of Israel, and one day God said, arise, you're leaving tonight. In the same way, God will give the command, and this army will rise up, and they will make a difference in our educational system.
Welcome to Maximize Live, the television broadcast from New Wine Church, London. Jesus said, I have come that you may have life and have it more abundantly. Our mandate is to challenge you to be all you can be. So get ready to be encouraged, enriched, and empowered. You will never be the same again. Now here is your host, Pastor Michael Olawore.
Thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast today. This is Maximize Life, where we encourage you to be all that you can be. I am Michael Olawore, your host and the senior pastor of New Wine Church in Woolwich, London. Today we are looking at a message by Dr. Tayo Adeyemi, the founding pastor of New Wine Church, London, who has gone home to be with the Lord. Today's message is titled, Go and Make Disciples of Nations. Stay blessed.
Let me remind you of the word Amorite. That word means to boast, to express oneself, to publish, to act proudly, to jut out like a mountain. Generally, this speaks of arrogance, but more specifically, it speaks of humanistic thinking, it speaks of liberalism, and ultimately, it speaks of atheism. Say humanism, liberalism, atheism. And ladies and gentlemen, these three concepts now form the bedrock for our educational system today. Children are taught evolution, and children are taught that, well, maybe God exists, maybe he doesn't exist. We don't even know. So where does this leave us? Where does this leave us? What should be our response to this situation? Well, I believe that as I speak today, God is already raising an army of people who are going to take the mountain of education. I believe that. God has raised apostles to take the mountain of government. He has raised prophets to take the mountain of economy. And guess who is raising to take the mountain of education? Teachers. He's raising teachers to take the mountain of education. Now, listen. I told you that there are some prophets, some apostles who are apostles to the church, and some apostles who are apostles to the world, to government. I told you that there are some prophets who are prophets to the church, and some prophets who are prophets to the world, to the economy. In the same way, there are teachers to the church, and there are teachers to the world. We need to disabuse our minds when we think of the fivefold ministry. We need to disabuse our minds of the idea that the fivefold ministry has to be tied behind a pulpit within the four walls of the church. I believe we have enough apostles in the church. We now need apostles in the world. I believe we have enough prophets in the church. We now need prophets in the world. And I believe we have enough teachers in the church. We need teachers in the world. Let me tell you the power of teachers in the world. I, as a teacher in the church, can stand up on the pulpit on Sunday morning and teach a congregation. Now, you can take that same message into 1,000 different places on Monday morning. And the word spreads. And the moment the word gets out, nothing can hold it back. Are you listening to me today? I believe that teachers are going to play a significant role in turning around our educational system. Why do I believe that? I believe that teachers impact the lives of people forever. Let me ask a question. How many of you here today remember clearly, distinctly, a teacher who taught you in primary school? Let me see your hand. Almost every hand in this room is up. Now, there are people you've encountered since primary school, employers, friends, that you've forgotten about completely. But you still remember your primary school teacher. Why? Because that teacher left an impression, made an impact on your life. We never forget the people who taught us. Now, those teachers, usually, some of you remember them for good because they made a positive impact on you. Some of them, you remember them for bad because they made a negative impact on you. And it's usually the two extremes. The average teachers, we forget them very quickly. But there are some teachers we never, ever forget. How many of you had a foul-tempered teacher in school? Wicked teacher. I mean, you told yourself, when I grow up, I want to catch this guy in a dark alley all by himself. You remember them clearly. But how many of you have teachers who made a difference in your life, who helped you, who encouraged you, who inspired you in primary school, in secondary school? I remember the names of my teachers till today. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the power of a teacher. You see, because when a teacher teaches you, the teacher communicates more than information. They transmit their very persona. They communicate their spirit to you. You better understand that whenever you are in a learning environment, not only do you open your mind to receive information, you also open your spirit to receive impartation. That is why you must be selective under whose teaching you sit. Don't allow yourself to be carried away by a person's eloquence or even by their gifting. Watch their life. Watch their character. By their fruits, you shall know them. There are lots of believers who are carried away by sensationalism, and they want to go be spectators where sensational things are happening. They enjoy drama and entertainment, and they put themselves in an environment where things are poured into their spirits that defile them and confuse them. I'm not talking about those of you who are here. I'm talking about people in faraway lands who are going to listen to this message after today. You are not sensationalists. Oh no, God forbid that you are. But you get my point, ladies and gentlemen. Teachers have significant impact on us. Now, I believe that teaching is the most noble profession in the world. Now, understand, I trained as a doctor, and medicine is a noble profession. But I believe that teachers are the best people in the world. I believe that. How many teachers in this room? Raise your hand. I want you to celebrate these men and women right now. Celebrate them. Listen, guys, you are the future. You are the future. You are the hope for the future. You are the future of this nation. You are the future of the nations. And I want you to understand, you don't necessarily have to stand in a classroom and say Jesus died and rose again. He was nailed to the cross. You can communicate science, and your spirit is transmitting your life to those children. You can communicate English, and your character, your attitude is teaching those children something because they're watching you, and children are very impressionable. Parents, talk to me. Have you seen your children mimicking you and they surprised you? You thought they didn't see, and then they did something that you did or said something you said and you thought, oh my God. That's exactly what happens. Children watch the way you react as a teacher when a challenge comes, when an issue confronts you. They watch how you handle it. And when you're a man of faith, when you're a woman of faith, when you love Jesus and you believe in God, you are shaping the lives of those children. And without using words, you're communicating to them how to handle issues in life. They watch you handle temptation. They watch you tell the truth when you have the opportunity to tell a lie, and it shapes their lives. And so I believe that in these last days, God is going to raise an army of teachers. And I want to encourage as many people as possible to get involved in teaching. And it does not necessarily have to be in a career or professional capacity. Volunteer in your local adult education school or your local community college. Get involved in training. Anytime you teach people, you impart something to them. Remember, how do you make disciples? You make disciples by teaching. So how can we take the mountain of education? I believe, ladies and gentlemen, that this is one mountain that almost all of us can get involved in. And so I'm going to speak on 5 levels. Number 1, let me talk to you students. Students, let your light shine. Live out your faith. Bible says, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. Challenge anything that opposes your worldview. If your teacher gets up and speaks a bunch of nonsense that you don't agree with, don't be cantankerous, don't be impolite, don't be disrespectful, but take a stand and say, you know what, I don't agree with that. I remember the story of the teacher who stood before his class and said, there is no God, there is no heaven, there is no hell. And this boy said, well, I know there is a God, I know there is a heaven, I know there is a hell. And the teacher said, well, all those stories you read in the Bible, how do you know that Noah went to heaven? The boy said, well, when I get to heaven, I will talk to him. He said, how do you even know that the flood happened? The boy said, when I get to heaven, I will talk to Noah and he will tell me the flood happened. And the teacher said, well, what if Noah is not in heaven? What if Noah is in hell? Then he said, you will ask him when you get there. Yeah. But seriously, stand up for what you believe. You don't have to be obstinate about it. You don't have to be obnoxious about it. But you can communicate what you believe. And believe me, you influence other children. When you stand up, especially against popular opinion, people respect you because you are brave and they know you stand for something. And if you don't stand for something, you will fall for anything. Challenge anything that opposes your worldview. Number 2, parents. Parents, get involved. Get involved on at least 4 levels. Get involved first with your child's education. Talk to your child. Find out what they're telling your child at school. Keep the communication channels open. Listen, there are some things you must teach your child before they teach your child in school. Don't let anybody teach your child about sex before you talk to your child about sex. And there are some of you who are shy or timid about approaching that subject. Pray. Go get materials. There are good Christian materials that help you to approach the subject. But listen, if you leave it and you don't talk to your children about sex, somebody else will. And let's be honest, those of us in this room here, how many of us heard about sex from our parents? A very small number. Look at the hands. Go around, put up your hands. A very small number, and most of them are young people now whose parents are in this church. A very small number. So how did the rest of you hear about sex? On the school field. In the toilet. Yeah, you heard from the wrong person and they told you all kinds of rubbish. And some of them are still affecting your marriage right now. So, keep communication lines open with your children. Get involved with your children. Number 2, get involved with their teachers and school authorities. Let them know you in your child's school. Let them know your face. Let them know your name. Let them know who you are. Let them know who your child is. Now, most parents don't communicate with the school unless they want to complain. And we Christians are popular. We are notorious for telling people what we stand against. How about also we begin to tell people what we stand for? How about when your child comes home and tells you something that happened in school that was really positive? You pick the phone and call the teacher and say, thank you so much. My child said you did so and so. I really appreciate what you did. Let them know, let them get positive feedback from you as well as negative feedback. Amen. Get involved. Find out from the teacher what's going on in the school. Not only should you be involved with your child, not only should you be involved with the teachers, get involved with the PTA. Get involved with the Parents Teachers Association. Attend the meetings that you should attend. Don't be too busy that you can't get involved in your child's education. And finally, get involved with the school governing authorities. Okay? So that's parents. Secondly, teachers. First, students. Secondly, parents. Thirdly, teachers. Those of you who are already teachers, ask God to use you as you are involved in the lives of children to impart something to them, that every day your life will speak a message about Jesus. St. Augustine said, preach the gospel by all means, and if necessary, use words. We can communicate the gospel without saying a word. Our lifestyle can communicate the gospel. Amen. And some of you here might consider becoming a teacher. I've told you, teaching, I think, is the highest and most noble calling in life. Maybe God is calling you into that profession. Number 4, become a school governor. Get involved in the decision-making process in your school, in the schools around you. And number 5, maybe God is calling you to start a school. If He gave you the vision, He will give you the provision. Our government now has thrown the door wide open for us to start free schools. And we are going to take them up on that challenge. As I speak to you today, we are already doing the groundwork. We are doing our research, and we're working to get engaged. This whole big society thing is an opportunity for the church to make a difference, and we are going to make a difference indeed. Amen. Now, it's not all gloom and doom, ladies and gentlemen. Even though the system is as I've just described it to you, the Bible tells us that God has not left Himself without a witness. Acts chapter 14, verses 16 and 17. God never leaves Himself without a witness. And in the middle of this godless educational system, God has got an army. And in the right time, in the same way as all scattered all over Egypt, were the children of Israel. And one day God said, arise, you're leaving tonight. In the same way, God will give the command, and this army will rise up, and they will make a difference in our educational system. Do you remember when Elijah said to God, they have killed all your prophets, they've broken down all your altars, I'm the only one who has not bowed the knee to Baal. God said, God said there are at least 7,000 prophets who have not bowed the knee to Baal. And those 7,000 prophets, some of them are in this room right now. People that God has positioned in the system for such a time as this. The same God who could hide a Moses right under Pharaoh's nose, the same God who could hide an Esther right under her serious nose, has placed you in that school for such a time as this. And I believe that more than ever before, the church is going to become the solution. I believe that schools are going to be failing on many levels. They won't know what to do with the children. There are schools that will be on the brink of closing down because the results are so bad. And they're going to call the local church and say, can you help us? Now, I know the church is the greatest volunteer force in the whole world. You know, listen. Do you know, I tell my friends who are ministers from other parts of the world, I tell them we have almost 600 workers in New Wine. And they can't believe it. They say, what? We have almost 600 workers. We have less than 20 full-time paid staff. You run a church this size with only 20 staff? Absolutely. Because we have dedicated, faithful, committed volunteers. And there's going to come a time that it's going to boil down to human resources. To say it in old school, manpower. And they're going to say, church, you have the manpower. Please come and help us. Those of you who can get involved in mentorship programs in your local schools, get involved on any level. Some of you can say, I want to be a substitute teacher. I'm going to dedicate one day a week to go be a substitute teacher or to go be an assistant in a classroom. Anything you can do will make a difference. But I also believe not only will the system fail because there's no personnel, they will fail because there are no financial resources. And those resources will be available in the church. I was listening to the news just in the past week, and there's a school in Bristol, a Catholic school, St. Ursula's in Bristol, run by the nuns, the Sisters of Mercy. The school is on the brink of bankruptcy. Steve Chalk of Oasis Trust. Oasis Trust has 6 academies in the UK and several all around the world. They run hospitals and various other charitable projects. Steve Chalk moved in and said, we will take over the school. And they said no. Why? Because we don't want you to bring your evangelical values into our Catholic school. Isn't that a shame? The school would rather go bankrupt, roll up, and be handed over to receivers and administrators than allow evangelical teaching. You know what I think? There's going to come a time when there will be no choice. Now, let me talk to you parents for a minute. There are some of you here, you don't need to show your hand because I don't want to embarrass you. But there are some of you here who come to the second service because you went to the Catholic Church in the first service. You did. At 7 o'clock this morning, you were in the Catholic Church because you want your child to go to a good school. And so you go to church there. You're a member in that church. You're a member there. You're getting baptized. You're getting confirmed. You're getting first communion. You're a very good Catholic. And you make sure the Reverend Father sees you every Sunday because you want to get your child into a good school. I'm not knocking you. Please, you get a good school for your child if you must. But do you know we are now in the season that we have to have our own schools too? We're now in that season. And when that day comes, you will be delivered forever from being a member of two churches, getting baptized in two places. Oh, what a life. I feel so sorry for you. I do too. I do too. But you get the message today. So this is the day that teachers will arise in the land. Whatever area you're called to teach, maybe you're a trainer professionally, you are still a teacher. One anecdote, one story, one example, one illustration can make a difference in the life of people. I know motivational speakers all across America who don't get on stage and talk to the audience and say, I'm born again, believe the Bible. But then they communicate the word throughout their message. Someone like Jim Rohn will say, the ancient prophet said, and then, or the wise man said, and he'll quote Solomon. And there are people, when they finish their motivational talk, people are paid $500 to come and listen to them. They make an altar call and get people saved. We have done that. And our next level, we get them to pay. And then they come, we teach them for 3 days, principles of success. And at the end of the 3 days, I tell them, if I teach you all these principles and I don't tell you about how to get to heaven, I've done you a disservice. So I'm going to talk to you for 15 minutes. Those of you who don't want to listen, you can leave the room now. Not a single person leaves. And they sit down and they hear a presentation of the gospel. I say to them, the seminar is over. You've got your money's worth. You can leave if you want to. They don't go because they want to hear what I have to say. This guy who's been telling me these things that are going to help me for the past 3 days, this last 15 minutes, I ain't missing it. And we make an altar call and the altar is full. Executives coming to give their lives to Jesus. And some of you may be called into doing that. Every means necessary. Disciple the nations by teaching them. For the last time, tell somebody today, go and disciple the nations. Let us pray.
I trust that this message has enriched you and challenged you to be all that you can be. If you have any question, comment, or prayer request about what you have heard today, do not hesitate to contact me using the details on your screen, and I will be glad to serve you as best as I can. Also, if you happen to be in or visiting the London, Essex, or Kent area of the United Kingdom, we encourage you to come and worship with us at New Wine Church. All our service details are on your screen right now. Well, to the next time on Maximize Life, God bless you.
We hope you have been blessed by today's broadcast. For more details about the dynamic ministry of Dr. Tayo Adeyemi, please contact us using the details on your screen or visit newwine.co.uk.